What if these things can read our minds?
This is a safe sex zone.
Simple, beautiful fish.
Good night, campers.
Turn on, tune in, talk movies. Welcome to the Video Cult.
It's water skiing, it's marine biology, it's the out-of-focus reach of the third dimension. Welcome to the Video Cult.
You know, Cal, could be a stroke of luck. If we kill this beastie on camera, I can guarantee you media coverage.
All right, welcome back to our show. I'm, of course, Josh Carmody.
I'm Nathan Stone.
And we decided this week, I think I did make a joke about this, that I was like, it's not really an exploitation film in the traditional sense, but I do feel that it exploits the good name of Jaws. And it takes place at SeaWorld. That was a point I didn't make. The true king of exploitation, SeaWorld. So that we're going to get into that in a minute. But how has your week been going? What have you been up to, Nathan?
Well, things have been pretty good. I'm still working on my fitness videos. I finished 3 of them to this point, and I've only got a dozen or so more to go before my work term is finished. But I'm doing this for a friend of mine, and she's a wonderful person, so I don't mind kind of putting in the extra time if it requires. And something that I had a little fun with, though, yesterday was I came across a movie completely by accident, just puttering online last night. And I kind of immediately decided that, oh, okay, I'm going to just watch this right now. I'm going to see if I can find it. And it was called Brain Scan. I don't know if you've come across this.
Oh, Edward Furlong? Yes, I have definitely seen Brain Scan, yeah.
All right. So it was totally unknown to me. I just saw, I think, the trailer of it randomly on a little pop culture website. And if you've not seen this movie, it's a lot of fun. It's kind of, I would describe it as a young adult horror film. It's from 1994, and it really plays into the fear of violent video games. And our boy Edward Furlong, he gets a mysterious disc in the mail. The game is called Brain Scan. It pulls him into this kind of other world where he sees through a murderer's eyes, and is it him really committing these murders? Or these murders are happening in real life? It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. I wouldn't call it a good movie, but for something that is clearly aimed to scare teenagers of 1994, I had a good time with it, I gotta tell you.
Yeah, it definitely falls into that, like, there was sort of a cyberpunk, not quite cyberpunk genre of movies from the early 90s where they weren't set in the future. They were very clearly set in the early 90s. But the filmmaker's understanding of what computers and technology could do of the time was wildly overestimated.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like, it was always, you'd see video games in movies, and it's always like in this, it looks like real life. It looks like it's just filmed, trying to think, like, yeah, anything VR looks like true to life, like the holodeck on Star Trek kind of thing.
Well, Edward Furlong's character in this, he has on his own a computer that responds to his voice command, like full on like Alexa kind of deal, can make phone calls for him just, by voice command, and has a bunch of pre-programmed responses and graphics. So this is, a 1994 CRT. He's got like a naked CRT monitor. It's all very
that Apple IIe.
Yeah, exactly. And he's doing stuff that even now I'm like, wow, my computer doesn't do that.
Yeah, there was a lot of that. Hackers is like that. The Lawnmower Man is like that. There's a bunch of movies from that time, and books as well. I was reading like an adventure book that was written around 1994, and in it they're like, if we just put in the coordinates, the computer is going to like completely recreate this accident that happened 400 years ago with a tsunami and a ship. And the guy's like, oh, they're talking about how Hollywood is using this at that time to do like deep fake. And it's so convincing that like Julia Roberts is going to be in a movie with I don't know, somebody who's dead, like Orson Welles or something like that. Or I don't know if Orson Welles was dead in the early 90s, but young Orson Welles. So some dumb shit like that. But yeah, that happens a lot.
Mm-hmm. I've always been a fan of the zoom and enhance. That's used by every cop show ever. And you're just like, well, digital zoom doesn't work like that, but okay, sure.
Yeah, there's a good joke about, if you ever watch Red Dwarf, they do a good joke about that where they're like, enhance. Okay, now look at that nickel. Okay, now flip it. And it just goes, it goes on and on and on.
How about you?
Not much. I started finally with my internship work term. So it is doing video production stuff with switchers and robot cameras, PTZ cameras, which is nice. The work is a little dry. It's so far been like kind of government conferences that need to be like done over Zoom and in person, but I get to partake in the catering, which is nice. But today went by pretty smooth. The first day, though, the PTZ cameras are pretty small. They just look like a little dome, and we had it on a tripod in a corner, so it was kind of out of everyone's way, and it could look at just the podium. And there were some chairs that were a little close to it, and so I kept watching. I was like, who's going to sit there? Who's going to end up like getting the chair too close? And of course, this woman comes up, pulls the chair out until it hits the leg of the tripod, because I saw it like shake on the monitor. And I just watched her as she sat there. I was like, okay, you going to pull forward because you're too close to it? No, she looks and sees that she's touching it. She grabs the leg of the tripod and starts like shoving it into the corner. She didn't even look up to what it was. Like, even if it was a lamp, that was the most unhinged reaction of just like, it's like a toddler just like, oh, why is it near me? And so like she tried to push it and I just ran over, and the only thing I said, I was just like, this is a camera. I didn't say anything else to her. I was just like, no, this is a camera. And just straighten it out. But other than that, it went by okay. But no, it's been good. They're a good group of guys. And yeah, I'm looking forward to getting through it and getting out into the workforce, finishing school.
How would you rank the catering? Was it good? Like, did you get a good spread?
Yeah, the first one was at the Atlantica, so it was like for full breakfast. Okay. So I had like a bunch of bacon and eggs. I contemplate. No one went for the cereal, and I contemplated, the little boxes of cereal you're supposed to pour the milk into. I contemplated just filling my bag up with those, and I was like, maybe I shouldn't. But then someone else at the conference did it. Oh. She was like, I'm taking all these Fruit Loops. Today was okay. Different hotel, similar. Well, today it was, when they cut sandwiches into like little triangles. Yes. And it's like, I could eat enough of these to equate 7 sandwiches, but if you put 7 uncut sandwiches in front of me, I definitely couldn't eat that many. So that was good. I'm a fan of that. So that was my day today.
All right.
Other than that, yeah, not much. I was reading the Jason Statham movie, The Meg. That's actually a series of books. Oh. Based on a series of books. They've been coming out since 1996. I think there's 5 or 6 of them. I'm on the second last one now because I've been waiting for the last one to come out. Just before the movie came out, I read through all the books. The movie came out, was not very much like the book, and I was very upset. And so I was complaining to my partner not too long ago. I was like, oh my God, the movie's nothing like the book. And she was like, well, I didn't read the book. And I was like, okay, I'm going to read you the book so you can watch the movie and complain with me. So I last night finished, after watching Jaws 3, I finished reading the last couple chapters of The Meg, and then we watched The Meg. Which I didn't hate as much this time. I think I had time to simmer down. Plus, the trailer for the second one, which I think is going to be R-rated versus the PG-13 first one, came out. So I'll start to forgive them over time, I think. But that's about it.
Well, shall we go to SeaWorld?
Yes, let's go to SeaWorld. I did actually go to SeaWorld.
Did you?
When I was 16, I went to Florida. I went to Disney World Universal Studios with my film class in high school. And I remember we had extra time the first day and extra money like saved up because we sort of like sold things and sold chocolate bars and stuff to fund the trip on top of like I was working at the time so I could pay for it. And they were like, let's go to SeaWorld. We have extra time. And I remember like a roller coaster that we rode a bunch of times. But then I remember a friend of mine, I'm still actually good friends with her to this day. She did one of my tattoos. We went down to where Tilikum was. Tilikum was the whale who I think is now dead. And it was like raining that day. There was really no one there. It was weirdly like dead and felt dingy. So we went down to the underwater viewing area. No one's there. Giant tank. It's indescribable how big that tank is. And just watching this depressed whale with its tail down, dorsal fin collapsed, just listing lazily. And I remember she grabbed my hand and I was just like, yeah, let's go. So that's what I remember of SeaWorld. A very depressing, dingy, like
terrible.
Bathtub. Yeah. So that and this movie are the things I remember.
Do you know the lore of Tilikum?
Oh, yeah. I've watched Blackfish a number of times. All yeah. Because I even looked it up when I saw the whale in this. I was like, wait, when did Tilikum come to SeaWorld? It's not Tilikum. Tilikum didn't go to SeaWorld until 92. So I don't know. I didn't actually look at which whale it was in this. It might be Shamu's mom or something like that. I don't know if they had. Yeah. They moved them around a lot. So it's hard to know which one it was. They had their weird little slave trade, and they were sending them off to Laurel Parquet and shit.
Oh, yeah.
But I digress.
So I do want to bring up Tillicum again one other time, but I'll wait until we get into the movie here. But yeah, that's wild. I only ever went to Marineland in Ontario.
I went
which
once when I was a kid.
Yeah, the Canadian version of SeaWorld. And I got to tell you, I really don't remember much. I was like maybe 5 years old, but I do remember seeing the seals. They in their big seal enclosure and stuff. But yeah, I don't really remember any of the big mammals or anything like that. I have been to the Ripley's aquarium though. That's in Toronto. That thing is incredible. We talk about undersea like tunnels, as we will get into. They have several of them. Honestly, pretty dope.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Oh man. All right. So Jaws 3D came out in 1983, directed by Joe Alvis, who worked on the previous two movies as like a production guy. I think he was in charge of some of the shark design and things like that. So I think it was kind of one of those obvious choices to do the third sequel in a series of films with diminishing box office returns. And it's funny, like I remember this one the most. I do, and this gives us a chance to talk about the other sequels because I don't think we'll ever really do them. They're less kind of exploitation-y. The second one feels very much like the blueprint for sequel to a blockbuster. It kind of has that one-line pitch, that elevator pitch of just like it's Jaws, but with a bunch of teenagers, like, so because they get their boat like capsizes, and then and you have the shark attacking a helicopter, and so you just get a lot more like kind of over the top moments with it. And then the fourth one is truly out to lunch because the fourth one had in the original script there was supposed to be like a voodoo doctor guy who was actually controlling the shark, because in the novelization for the movie they still talk about that stuff.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
See, that to me would have made the fourth movie better. I gotta tell
honestly,
you.
if they had just went all out as opposed to bringing back Brody's wife, Lorraine Gray. So Lorraine Gray comes back in the fourth one. She wasn't even really an actress when she got the job in Jaws. I think she had been in the movie Car Wash briefly. It was like a George Carlin and somebody else movie, but she's in that briefly, and she was married to the head of Universal at the time that Jaws was made, and he was just like, put my wife in the movie. So yeah, bringing her back for the fourth one where she's just crazy, like the shark is clearly hunting us for revenge, would have been better if they'd like went that extra step and made it really crazy. But as it stands, this is truly the weirdest one. So yeah, where does it start off? I'm trying to remember.
We start off with a nice shark POV, and that's something that we get kind of throughout the movie is the shark eye view of the scene. You know, we do a little bit of swimming. You know, we're in a little bit of a reef. And there's a flounder, I think, in front of us. I don't know fish very well. Is it grouper?
I'm pretty sure it's a grouper.
It might be a grouper. Yeah.
I think because they get really, really big. I've seen videos of people like getting accosted by them where they'll just be like bumping into them and stuff. Like, I don't think they eat they don't eat people.
I don't think so.
Yeah. So a grouper gets bit in half, and we get our first 3D effect. A beautiful, beautiful 3D
just
effect.
Spinning grouper head coming towards us.
And it's funny because like other movies at the time, there was a resurgence of 3D movies at the beginning of the 80s, and we like Friday the 13th Part 3, which I saw recently at the Propeller Arcade. And in that, there is the cheap 3D tricks, but they're not, they don't ever do that. Like it's anytime there's like a 3D trick, it seems to be isolated and shown like center screen. It's never like kind of organic or anything. Like in Friday the 13th, there's a part where they're adjusting like the antenna on the TV, and so then that's like, whoa, it's 3D, you know. But I think it might be because of the way they did the 3D with this one that they filmed it a certain way. I'll look at the thing again here. It's meant for polarized 3D glasses, and so I think that's where it's not the red and green 3D effect. And projectors that like movie theaters didn't have to buy extra equipment to do this kind of 3D. And it's also the reason why the 2D version of it looks so bad is because they're only using one of the 35 millimeter transfers. And so there's like the edges are blurry and things just, it's always like a soft focus for most of the movie.
After our first 3D, our little grouper head spin, what I loved about this was we get the Jaws logo, and it's coming together like teeth, which I thought was a nice touch for this one. And as we're going, we get the tense kind of Jaws-ish music, not quite the dun-dun, but also like a very tense kind of theme going up. And then we look up and we see the skis from water skiers going on.
So much water skiing.
A lot of
movie.
water skiing.
There's so much water skiing in this movie. And I have to say, I'm not surprised that when I watched part of Sharks Don't Die, which is the making of Jaws 3D that aired on TV, most of it's about fucking dolphins and water skiing. They don't at any point skip through it. They don't at any point show them messing with their animatronic shark in the making of Jaws 3D, because they probably were like, it looks like crap. It looks worse than the first one.
Yeah.
But yeah, so much water skiing. And it switches over to that happy, fun thing, which even the first Jaws has kind of, when they get out to the water, there's kind of a fun adventure tune that kicks in sometimes.
Lift, right? Like in the music. But this one was so jarring to me.
It's like a game show.
Yeah, because we break the surface and immediately it's like this American, great beach scene, right? Everyone's happy. There's they're like the loud bombastic music, and we're just like, did we just no transition there?
Yeah.
Okay. I also loved in the credits that play over this, suggested by the novel Jaws.
It says that in the fourth one as well. I don't know.
I'm not sure
There's
what
not
that
many
was about.
movies that do that, but yeah, I don't know what the legality is that they have to say suggested by, but they do that in the fourth one. I don't know about 2. But yeah, they definitely do that again.
I saw that and I was like, oh boy, that's a red flag if ever there was one.
Oh, man.
I read the book Jaws, and this could have been a thing that happened afterwards. Like, as far as I can tell, that's about as much suggesting as it did. So we get our nice credit scroll. We get to see our team. I think the silver bullets.
The silver bullets are the two guys that are in the silver bullets are the two guys that are in like leotards, and they like crisscross when they do. See, this is how much fucking stupid.
There's so much water skiing. I can't keep it.
There's 2 different teams of water skiers, and the big team, the first one we see where they're like building a pyramid of gymnastic women, that has 2 teams. There's 2 sets of them because the show plays so often. So some of the characters that are in this pyramid of women aren't in it later because there's so many fucking water skiers.
Yeah. By the time we can leave that behind and get on shore, we get to see like the SeaWorld training for their new, or I assume for their new staff. We that woman who is clearly sent from HR that is taking the girls through this.
Yeah, she's telling them not to modify their uniforms because if their ass hangs out, then they're going to go back to shoveling fries.
Yeah.
So
your
she
shorts
starts doing
are
that.
short enough.
Yeah. And the way she's like moving her hands, like conducting, or it's like kind of similar to like the airplane, like here's the exits thing. It's like, welcome to SeaWorld. And this is where my first note comes in, because we get to a bunch of reporters and they're asking about this new underwater tunnels exhibit attraction, I guess, that's been built. And they're like, it cost $34 million. The first question that a self-respecting journalist asked is, did it really cost $34 million? They're going to give you 2-3 questions tops, and you wasted on asking them something you knew the answer to. And I didn't understand that at all.
The journalist, because we get a couple scenes with the journalists in this movie, and both times I was very confused as to where these journalists were from and if it was their first day, because even when we get later on in the movie where everything has gone wrong, they're just very chill about the whole thing, right? They're just letting Calvin just kind of, I guess the spokesperson, because it's not Calvin, but it really I was just like, oh, okay. So no real questions then today, huh? Okay.
Do we get to Dennis Quaid after this, or do we go to his girlfriend first?
So we get first we get the kind of setup for the first part of this movie, because we see the gates right after the little report question, and they're messing with the gates. There's a guy coming in, and there's a shark following him, but nobody sees the shark despite the dorsal fin clearly sticking up out of the water. And the gates are jammed or busted, or in some way they've become stuck.
Yeah, I think because the giant shark tried to get through, squeezed its ass
Right,
through the
right,
gates.
that was it,
knocked
yeah.
the gate off the track, and then for some reason that requires underwater welding.
Yes. And so that's where we see the guys talking about Mike
Yeah.
Brody, but we don't see Mike Brody in this scene. He is the I guess the repairman / builder / the man who basically built this SeaWorld.
Yeah, I was confused because initially when they introduce him, and it's funny because I've seen this movie before, but like I started watching it and I was like, what is he in this? Because in the next one, he's a marine biologist. They ignore this one completely, and he's the marine biologist in the next one. So in this one, I was like, he seems like he's just like a manager, like a general manager at a theme park. But it turns out he's also an engineer.
Yes.
Because he built the new underwater attraction, and he's in charge of the guys who just like do general maintenance of the park. He's wearing a lot of hats.
A really busy boy, Mike, in this movie. Yeah.
And I noticed he uses now it's not a jet ski. I'm pretty sure that's a Sea-Doo because
That is a Sea-Doo,
The
yeah.
handles come up, and he uses it like a fucking Segway. He uses it like a Segway, like you see people at Disney World that work there riding around on Segways, and that's how he uses it. He's always standing up in like a suit, riding around on a Segway, or not a suit, but like a golf shirt.
Did the no overtime thing make you laugh like it made me laugh? Like it was almost like their rallying cry when he was telling them to fix the gate, and they were talking about doing this work, and he was just like, no overtime, and they're like, no overtime, Mike. Like it was. I don't know what that was, but it was a callback to something that clearly I'm never going to get to see.
Yeah.
There's a reference that it was an in-joke that happened well before the movie.
Well,
Clearly.
that's what a lot of the first half hour, 40 minutes of this movie does, is it follows the tropes of a lot of other movies where it's like, of honestly lower budget movies, where we can't show the monster until the end because we only have so much money for the monster. So we're going to spend a lot of time with like, oh, here's the person coming back to the town they used to live in, and we're meeting all these people and getting, things that are clearly supposed to be in jokes and references to things that happen, and it's almost like this world building that they're trying to do, but everyone's really like not interesting at all. So none of it goes anywhere. So it doesn't work to give you any sympathy to any of these people. It's just wasting its own time.
Also, Mike, pay those men overtime if they're staying late to work overtime. I don't know what you've done to brainwash them into cheering no overtime with you, but pay the people. Mike has jet skied off, and
We should also say that Mike is the eldest son of Chief Brody from the first movie, because the only two characters that are in every single movie are Mike and his younger brother,
Sean.
Sean. But I'm pretty sure they're played by different people in each movie.
time. Yes.
there's 8 different people playing these characters. And this time it happens to be Dennis Quaid and John Hutch or Pooch. I'm not sure how to say his name. He was on One Day at a Time. It was ask your grandmother. She'll know.
What I love about this next part, so he goes over and the dolphins are acting up. There's two dolphins that do dolphin shows. They're very important characters to this movie, honestly.
Yeah, I think I put down that the note that half of this is like Daughters of Flipper.
It really
especially
is.
with the music and the amount of times that we just see the dolphins doing like tricks and stuff. It's borderline a Flipper movie.
Yeah. You know who the dolphins reminded me of? From our last episode, Chopping Mall. The dolphins were Rick and Linda. Because they were the most competent actors in this movie. Yeah. And you're just like, oh no, like they're gonna die just to because the humans have to live but we'll get to more to the dolphins, but this is the first scene that we see them, and one of the dolphins because the dolphins are freaking out, they're kind of trying to get out of the area because they know what the humans don't, and one of them is just ramming its head against this gate. And I couldn't stop laughing. I felt bad, but I was just like, because he just kept, and I was like, your nose is going to get stuck in the chain link fence. And then I felt bad about laughing because I was like, how did they film this scene? Was there guys on the other side pushing this dolphin into the gate? Like,
yeah, just in the water. They got it drugged Just shoving it
Yeah.
against the fence. Yeah, like
Well,
bullies.
The other option is that they trained this dolphin with like rewards and treats and things to bang its head against a gate. There's no good option here with how this stunt was filmed.
Yeah, because I don't remember seeing it. I must have been making notes, so I don't remember if it looked fake or not, like in terms of if it was.
To me, it looked like the dolphins, but it wasn't a super close up, so might have been a guy with a hand puppet. I don't know.
Yeah.
It just was one of the most entertaining scenes in the opening part of the movie for me.
I think Sean gets introduced shortly after this.
We meet Kathy first because he goes over and she is riding an orca.
Oh, yes,
Yes.
right. Yeah, we have
Yeah.
to meet his girlfriend.
Yeah, and her first question to him is, "Where are your boots?" Which is an interesting question. I guess maybe part of the dress code at SeaWorld is that he should be wearing his boots.
I suspect most people there are barefoot all the time.
That's what I would have thought, but I'm not part of SeaWorld staff, so maybe it was an important question. His answer was pretty funny too. It's just like he only wears them to bed or something.
Oh, yeah, he did say that. Yeah, he was like, oh, I only wear them to bed. And then I have a note here about shaving, and I can't remember. Somebody says that somebody needs a shave, and I feel like it was Molly to Mike. But, like, he's clean-shaven, like most of the guys in this movie. The only person who has any facial hair is that British guy with a mustache.
Mike is completely.
So it was either Mike or
clean
Sean.
shaved.
One of the two were accused of needing a shave, and I was like, in what timeline?
Now, maybe it was the fact that we're watching this movie in
280p.
Yeah, like 420. I'm just like
the 5 o'clock shadow was blending in with the pixels.
Yeah, maybe it was that. That's a good point, though. I didn't catch that one. Now, this is also the first time where we find out that Mike knows nothing about marine life. Because there's like 3 times during the movie where he's calling dolphins fish. He doesn't know what marine mammals are. And this is the first one of them. And my note here was just, Mike works at SeaWorld. How does he not know the difference between fish and mammals?
He never was like on a smoke break and read a plaque because no one else was around.
Yeah.
Like
His girlfriend is a marine biologist.
Yeah, who seems to spend most of her time training dolphins to do tricks.
Yes.
Because I question if I question if SeaWorld has ever had a full-time marine biologist employed ever. And if they were there, are they honestly teaching dolphins to do tricks?
Now I'm wondering if marine biologist is just a work term that SeaWorld uses to label some of its employees so that they can say they have marine biologists. Like, is she the sandwich artist equivalent of a marine biologist?
Oh, God. I hope so, because, the level of science that she does
Very
is
questionable.
pretty limited and questionable. Yeah, we'll get into more of it later.
Yeah. So now we get to meet a couple people arriving. We get to meet Fitzroyce, the British guy.
Yeah, okay, I'm glad you're confused as well, because he shows up dressed like an Australian. He's got, like, the Australian cowboy hat with the flat brim and the gator teeth on it, and, like, he's all tan. He shows up looking like fucking Steve Irwin with a hat on. And I remember later in the film, as I was questioning it, I was like, what is this guy? And then immediately after that, he puts on a wetsuit with a fucking British flag on it. And for the next 3 minutes, it's just British this, Queen's country that. And I was like, oh, thank you, movie, for answering this so heavy-handedly for me right away.
Yeah. It took me forever to just figure out what does this guy do? What is his job? And I guess he's famous. And he does work with like photography, and he is involved in, Save the Whales organization.
But
like,
he's also really horny to kill stuff.
He's very horny to kill
he's
stuff.
like, say what you're going to say. I got to get on the other.
Okay. This will come up later in the movie, but the first opportunity they get that they know a shark is stuck in there, Fitzroyce is breaking out the grenades, and he is just
he wants to blow it up and film it.
Film blowing it up. Yeah. He's thinking about the thing. I was like, dude, weren't you were trying to get into Kathy's pants talking about how you love saving whales?
Yeah, because I also, and I don't know if it was just her being like intentionally obtuse because she already has a boyfriend. But when she was like, why did you ram the Japanese whalers? And I was like, you're the marine biologist. You tell me. Like, I wonder why. But yeah, his like whole shtick of like both being like this Greenpeace guy who's also the crocodile hunter, who also this like when animals attack type, like kind of like Nightcrawler, like gonna jump on any like chance to do something exploitative. It's a weird character to try and put down. And then I don't know what's up with his boyfriend either.
Oh yeah, Jake.
Yeah.
Jake is an odd duck in this movie. I don't really know why he's here because he doesn't really add anything.
He's just another
of
cameraman. That's what he seems to be doing.
value.
Because they argue about it a bunch
Yeah.
when they're like, no, we need both cameras in the water and stuff. So he's another cameraman who only has one eye. He seems to be blind in the other eye. It's all milky and shit.
It's always what I want to see when a cameraman comes.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
just like, oh, well, he's got one working eye. That's good. What is depth perception? That's fine. Okay, so we meet Fitzroyce, and then Mike's younger brother shows up just right behind them because we've only got so much time.
Yeah,
to
they
meet
all
people.
got off the same shuttle
yeah.
from the airport, I assume. Yeah, they're just like, oh, hey, SeaWorld. Yeah, I work there.
Yeah.
Or I know my brother works there. Yeah, get on the same bus.
Yeah, we meet Sean. It's nothing really all that interesting, I found.
No, did he say where he went to university? Because he shows up with a cowboy hat on, but they're both from New York.
They are, yes.
It's established in the first movie they're from New York.
Yeah, I don't know if I think it was maybe Colorado. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. That's not something that met in my notes. But once we get them, we finally get our first kill of this movie. Finally, and this is our diver going down to fix the gate, and I'm trying to remember his name. I think it was Dan, maybe.
Shelby Overman.
Okay,
A
Shelby
mechanic,
Overman.
yeah, dives into the water to repair the gates.
So Shelby jumps in. He's doing his thing. Again, we get the over-the-shoulder
look 4 times. Yeah, he
4
looks
times.
multiple times.
Yeah.
And then gets attacked. I did love the sound of him getting attacked. There was a nice squelch, which makes no sense underwater, but I'm here for it. But then we get another one of these centered 3D effects. Like all of them look like a card that you'd find in an old cereal box, like a lithographic card is what they look like. It's like just perfectly framed. Here it is, like nothing else around it because it's always underwater. So there's no other thing to place where it is. Or maybe there's like the gates there, but it's very just like, the arm, it's floating.
Aren't you glad you spent the extra 50 cents on the 3D glasses?
Yeah.
Kind of
well, they
moment.
originally didn't have this many cheap gimmick tricks in the movie, but the producers were worried because they had been pumping it up that it was this big 3D movie. And if we had watched it in 3D, the movie, there's depth. It has that like kind of, I don't want to say Avatar. It's definitely not that good, but like Avatar, I remember you could look into it, looked like you were looking beyond the movie screen. And I think that's where most of the 3D was put into. So it had depth, but then they added the cheap 3D tricks because they were worried people would feel ripped off.
I gotta say, the idea of Jaws with 3D depth would have been enough to sell me on that. You don't actually have to add anything.
Especially where it's underwater, the scenes with this little sub and so I think it would have been enough. I think it was a good idea, but yeah, it's producers. They meddle.
And honestly, in retrospect now, it makes it a little bit more fun for me watching it, 40 years later.
Oh yeah. And it also it was funny because I remember when I was a kid, my dad telling me about going and seeing this movie in theaters. But my dad's one of those dads where he can never remember the title of a movie. So he'll just make shit up. So it was like, yeah, I went and saw it was Jaws, but they came out with it again, but in 3D. Like he didn't equate that it was the third one and that it's a completely different plot. But him telling me the story of them seeing the arm, and even then it looked dumb. And his buddy started laughing, and his buddy had a really weird and distinctive laugh, so that made him start laughing. So they're both just sitting there laughing hysterically in the movie theater, and somebody told them to shut up.
This is a 35-foot shark that makes no noise until it is literally right behind him. I feel like I'm watching Chopping Mall again. Just honestly, with the amount of sneaking that the sharks do. It makes more sense underwater, right? Like it's quieter.
But I would think that something that large would have like a wake.
Yeah, there'd be
it
displacement.
might be displacing water, or like there'd be something like even just sensing. And then like they're in this like, I guess it's like an open water lagoon, but the water there isn't that deep. There's clearly like treated stuff going on nearby. I didn't think the water would be that cloudy off the coast of Florida. Like, because you see clips of like people like out in the open ocean where a great white does sneak up on them because it's the color of it. It's like kind of comes out of the cloudiness of the ocean. But like we're in the Florida lagoon. We're in a harbor in Florida.
Yeah. An artificial lagoon.
Yeah.
As well. Brody made that lagoon, which will come up. So yeah, no, I just wanted to mention that because I always think it's funny how these giant things or these little robots manage to just completely sneak up on people. But then yeah, let's talk about the bar because God, I have notes about the bar. The bar was a fantastic scene.
Yeah.
We open with Charlene taking beers over to their table. Mm-hmm. I love her outfit, by the way. It was this pink and black, like striped little kind of almost go-go outfit. It was just a fun kind of
this
choice.
Movie is one of those painfully on the cusp of leaving the 70s and entering the 80s. And you get a lot of weird, strange mixtures of things. Yeah.
Yeah. But then, they show this game that is being played in the middle of the bar. And I watched this and then I had to stop the movie and watch it again because I was like, I don't know what's going on here. There was two people standing. They've got their palms together. They're doing this weird kind of, almost looks like a Star Trek or Jedi-esque kind of like thing where they're pushing their hands back and forth.
Felt like a mating dance for like birds.
Yeah, yeah. So I had to do some research on this. And luckily I wasn't the only one on the internet who watched this movie and then was like, I need to know what in the world they're doing. And it's called Gladiator Hands or Standoff. And
that's what Mike, or not Mike, that's what Sean calls it. Because they're like, oh, I'm the champion of standoff.
And so the rules of this game, you stand with your feet together with your hands facing your opponent. So kind of like hands matching. The object of the game is to knock your opponent off balance by either pushing their hands or withdrawing your own hands. And the winner is the one who does not move their feet. So you have to keep your feet planted. And of course you got your legs together so you don't have a great center of balance with that. And yeah, apparently very popular at camps. So I learned something. I watched like 4 different camp videos of people demoing it.
You went on the deep dive.
I did go on the deep dive, but it was really a fun thing to learn. And now I kind of want to play it with someone. So I might do that with my wife.
Yeah,
she'll,
do it, yeah.
I'll report back.
Well, you know the trick. You just have to tell her that
my fly's open.
And
that's it, yeah.
And she'll be so obsessed with the chance of seeing your penis that you'll be able to knock her off balance, as happens to the lovely Leah Thompson. In her first movie role, she lied to the casting director of this movie that she had been in movies before, because you could get away with that back in the early 80s. No one could really look it up. And so she lied, and that's how she got in, because then she was in Red Dawn, and then, of course, Back to the Future.
Wow, I did not realize that was how she got her start.
Yeah.
Huh. Man, there was a great time period, I guess, before the internet, where you could just go up to someone and with enough charisma and just lie your ass off, and you get in a movie.
Well, that's how George Lazenby became James Bond. He was in a Japanese commercial and he asked his agent, he was like, what do I do? And he was like, tell them you were in a movie in Japan, or like you were in a foreign films, I think was what it was. So he went there and he told our Broccoli, he was like, yeah, I was in foreign films. And they were like, all right, you're James Bond. And he went back to his agent and he was like, what am I supposed to do? They believed it and now I'm going to be James Bond. And he was like, well, you're probably a good actor because you just convinced one of the like hardest, like most difficult producers to work for that you can be James Bond. So
fantastic. Yeah. So one other thing. So right after they go back to the table after, he convinces her that, to come have some drinks with him. And then Sean sits down and calls out 2 beers to no one in particular, just to the bar. Yeah. He just turns his head, 2 beers. And then
this was before craft beer, so they were going to show up with a Molson or like a course.
And that's fine. My thing is, what bar in the entire world can you turn and just yell out 2 beers? Because that's the world I want to live in.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes I go out and you have to wait for and if it's busy, as I'm starting to get sober by the time I get another beer. And I was just like, man, I think I might live in the Jaws world.
Yeah.
I'll not go into the water, but I can get a beer whenever I want.
Bars are good.
Yeah.
The thing that I kept coming back to was if you worked at SeaWorld, a decidedly nautical themed place to work, would you also want to go to a nautical themed bar in your time off? I feel like you'd
That's
hate
a good point.
that.
You would.
You would.
I want to go. I want to go
Nice
to the most
continuity with your
like
life.
country themed like desert bar. I want cactuses on the walls.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see water.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I did not catch
because
that.
it had like the netting. Like that bar looked like what the lineup to the Jaws ride at Universal Studios used to look like.
Yeah, so we get the bar scene. Afterwards, the couples kind of split up.
Yeah.
Mike and Kathy end up just taking a walk along the beach. We learn Mike is going to Venezuela. Kathy, I think, has some kind of opportunity coming up like here in Florida.
Well, she is like contracted already to keep working at Florida to work with the whales, stuff like that. And Mike seems to have some engineering thing he can do in Venezuela that's going to take 1.5 years.
Yeah.
And that's as long as they've been together as well, which they've said. So it's a huge thing for their relationship.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of exposition, a little bit of setting the scene there. Yeah. But we get the worst break-in SeaWorld's history, I think, around here too. Because we get the two guys dragging their raft, which they somehow managed to
they threw it.
inflate.
They threw the raft had like an auto inflator, and they threw it over the fence, and it like exploded and inflated. But the thing about that is that when those like a raft or anything that you have to inflate, or even like when it's packed up and it's really dense, it's a lot more awkward and difficult to carry. And then when it's inflated, you think it would be easier, but they drag it like it's real different. Like you think, just pick it up off the ground. It's full of air now.
Yeah. But they're gonna do what they're gonna do, and they take to the lagoon, and we get a little bit of setup for their impending demise because very
I'm
obvious.
Still kind of not clear what they were doing there. Were they stealing fish?
No, so I looked this up afterwards because this was another thing that I had the same question. I was like, why are you breaking into SeaWorld? You're not stealing fish. You don't have any kind of big gear with you. So what they're doing is they're stealing coral is their plan.
Okay.
Because they brought in coral to make the reefs. And apparently it is a real thing. And coral is used a lot in jewelry, especially popular in Asia. And annual sales of like coral jewelry is in like the tens of millions. So it's very popular. It's very expensive. And so illegal coral poaching is a real thing that happens mostly in Southeast Asia. And it's kind of a problem for conservation, obviously, because it damages the coral and all sorts of things. But that's what they were up to, is stealing some coral from SeaWorld.
That at least makes more sense. Because I was like, are they going to just have a bunch of fish in bags in their little boat? Like, that's what I was picturing. They're going to be running away. Like, it's kind of like the money bags with dollar signs on it. Like, I got their clownfish.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure what was going on there.
I want a cut of the movie where they do get away, and it's just the bags of fish that you get from the fish store. It's just like them with 14 goldfish.
Yeah.
And they're just making off like bandits.
And this was where I put down a note, because we start going back and forth between the two guys stealing the coral, and Mike and Kathy are making out on the beach. Like, I say beach, the false sand area for this lagoon, and she's trying to lure him into the water. And I wrote down selective foggery, because the two guys stealing coral in their boat might as well be in the middle of like a swamp. It's so foggy. But then when we cut over to Mike and Kathy, you can see across the lagoon. There's nothing there.
Yeah, that was kind of a fun one. I liked the bullhorn prank that Mike and Kathy pull on Sean and Kelly.
It's Kelly, not Kathy.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Sean and
Kathy.
Kelly. I know. I spent the whole movie being confused because their names were so similar.
Oh, Catherine. Oh, yes, I'm seeing here. Catherine is with Mike. Kelly is with. Okay. Yeah, because he's like, I don't want to go in the water. Something happened to me when I was a kid, and I was like, yeah, the plot of Jaws 2. And so she does get him in the water, and that's where the bullhorn prank is. But before she pulls him in, because he says, "Oh, something happened to me as a kid, so I don't go in the water," she says, "I can overcome your childhood fears." Not I can help you overcome your childhood fears. Yeah. Specifically that she will go into his dreams Inception style and kill the shark that haunts his nightmares. It was such a strange way to phrase that. I was like, did they just mess up? And they were like, we only got so much film here, guys.
You've just given me the elevator pitch for the Jaws movie I desperately want to be Jaws 4.
Yeah.
Kelly's Revenge, she goes into Sean's dreams and fictionally...
Sean dies in the fourth one.
Oh, so. Right, yeah. I forgot about that.
He's the first person to die.
Oh, rip Sean. No, I guess he never did learn, though. Like,
no, he doesn't.
The childhood thing, and then reinforced by this movie, and then.
But yes, that happens. And it's funny because as I was watching it, I had seen another movie where this exact same prank happened, and I can't for the life of me remember it. And I didn't look it up, but I'll have to try and find something about it. But there's another movie where the exact same thing happens. Two people are in the water, other people show up with like a flashlight and a bullhorn, and then do the exact same thing. And it's similar consequences and stuff. And I don't remember what it is, but it's the exact same prank that happened in
just
another
a very
movie.
common jape for the young adults of the 80s, I guess. Yeah.
You are trespassing on SeaWorld property. Come out of the water with your hands raised high above your head.
I'm okay. My brother works here.
You turkeys have any ID?
Wait a minute. Mike, Kay?
Robin?
Mr. Bullhorn, please all knows all.
So yeah, they pretend to be SeaWorld security and tell them that they got caught fucking in the water, essentially. So
now we head back to the criminals.
Oh, and one other thing I wanted to say.
Sure.
The seducing, the Mike and Kelly seducing each other, where they were like falling. There was these kind of flag things that were on the beach.
Yes.
You were meant to kind of put them up so you could lay down your towel and put these flag things on either side of you. They said privacy, C with SEA on it. I wrote down as a note because I just thought that was the corniest thing ever. But the way that they're like, he's like crawling around like a leopard and she's like, sticking her leg out and like crawling backwards. I was like, who finds this sexy? Like, this is, as the kids say, giving me the ick.
I just kind of chalked it up to different time, I guess, but maybe they didn't have directions for that shot, and so they were just like, be fun and playful.
Yeah, that's
maybe
true. Yeah.
So getting back to our hapless criminals here, we get 2 off-screen deaths, unfortunately, for our 2 criminals.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
So
one guy's already under and gets killed.
Yeah.
And then the other guy gets pulled off the raft, and then the raft itself gets sucked down.
I enjoyed the raft getting killed as well, or eaten. I'm not sure.
Oh no, it got killed.
Yeah.
The raft was also an important character. Was the comic relief?
Yeah. That was fun. I would have been more disappointed in that scene if the raft hadn't immediately folded in 2 and got sucked under the water. Like that was a good touch. But yeah, I was a little disappointed in the off-screen deaths being kind of the second deaths of the movie.
Yeah, and this goes back to Joe Alvis being a kind of veteran of Jaws movies. I feel like he just doesn't have the strength to make it thrilling and building suspense. There's no suspense built by not showing the shark at this point in a movie that is like kind of this, like, we know what we're getting into. Mm-hmm. This movie should be ridiculous. The last one was, Jaws 2 certainly has more of the shark jumping out of the water. The shark only jumps out of the water once. So there's kind of, it's kind of not doing itself any favors by being subdued. That being said, when we do get to less than half of the movie left, it really takes off. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think it just is part of that failure to build suspense by trying to ape its own prequel and not really knowing how to do that.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I think you're probably right on the money there. Now it's the next morning. We get a breakfast scene of
which is where I did actually end up making my notes about how this kind of feels like Flipper's daughter. Oh, because there's breakfast and then they go to work. Yeah, but I felt like Flipper's daughter, and I wrote down, why marine biologist trained dolphin with no punctuation. But yeah, we're having breakfast. Mm-hmm. We get there's a number of callbacks to the first Jaws. We get one of them here because he's feeding the dog on the counter, and she says the dog doesn't eat on the counter or something like that, which was Lorraine Gray's line in the first movie.
Oh, I did not catch that.
Mike also has the dog on the counter.
Nice. That's a nice little callback. I did not catch that. This is where we get, I think this is the first time that we learn in the movie that Kathy is a senior biologist, because I don't think it's mentioned before that point. Because I made a specific note of it because I was so shocked. So I was like, oh, she was just training stuff. Like I thought she was a trainer. But yeah, so we get a little bit more on that.
Well, Mike gets called from his boss.
Mike gets called, yeah.
I think he was introduced at this point already, Louis Gossett Jr.'s character.
Yes,
and
we did see Calvin
he's
a
like
little
the
bit.
manager of operations for the whole park, and is sort of like the Jurassic Park book version of John Hammond, where he's like kind of the money hungry, like, you know, kind of spare no expense type guy.
Yeah.
But he calls up Mike and complains that the gate's not fixed. So we get our first sort of hint that things are going awry.
And so Mike has to take off. We get a scene with Charlene to kind of set up the fact that what's his face fixing the gate? Shelby. She
assaults his boss. She assaults Mike. She assaults his boss for him not coming home. Because she throws like a bag of his stuff at his lower back while he's like crouched down. Yeah. The reaction that Dennis Quaid has, like, I felt that. It's like when you're a kid and someone just decides, oh, I'm going to kick you because you're down. And it's just like that reaction of like, oh, like you like back into the left. Like, I was like, that's really real. And again, you're assaulting his boss because he didn't come home, and she accuses him of running off with like the ticket girl or something like that.
Yeah, and the whole thing while this scene is happening, I just like, if he didn't lose his job already, you're not doing him any favors here, Charlene.
Not.
And so I started feeling sorry for Shelby at that point. Well, obviously he got eaten, so I feel sorry for him. But you know, Mike has him with this no overtime mantra. Yeah. He gets eaten by a shark, and his girlfriend's a bit of a psycho. Like I was just like, maybe he's better off now.
And then Catherine comes over and like is kind of like trying to comfort her. Her boyfriend just got assaulted. She's comforting the woman who did it because they're like, oh, he didn't come home, but they realize like all of his money, his credit cards, his ID is there, and they're like, oh, he's probably sleeping drunk somewhere. And the way they do this, where they sort of turn away from her, and she's like, oh, I don't mean him any harm. I don't want him to actually be hurt, is like what she was saying. But then Kay and Mike like turn away from her. They're not 5 feet away. They're just like, the lagoon. Like, it was almost a comedic beat that they're like, oh, his dead body might be down there. Like, for all, like, the dude could have just drowned, and they're like, it kind of this like, like moment. It was like, what the fuck? Really strange tone.
And it does set up, however, our great submarine scene.
Oh, yes.
I really liked the little model sub that they had for this.
Yeah,
it was cute.
The way, I don't know if you've ever seen Star Trek, the motion picture.
I have.
And so the special effects in that, when they're flying through space and they see people in the windows and they're like, hello, and you see the people waving back from the windows, it's like the same special effects 4 years later and way shittier.
Yes. Did not have the expertise.
Why. It might be because of the blue of the water, whereas it was easier with the black. But there is something else, like, I don't know, that model, like the model submarine must not have been very big because it doesn't feel very detailed.
No.
And they also have trouble keeping it on screen because parts of it disappear.
Yeah.
Like, and if you need, for our listeners, if you need an idea of what that's like, when you use like the green screen filter on TikTok and you can sort of stick your face through it or out of it, it's like that. This stuff's just like popping in and out on this little submarine.
That was one of the big things. And it's not subtle either, because I was watching, and that was the first thing I saw. I was just like, oh man, they are having trouble with the chroma keying here. This is not working.
And it's not like, and something I do wonder, because I'm like, obviously it's not a resolution issue where a lot of older TV shows, they hide stuff by the fact of virtue that 4:3 standard definition television was fuzzy. It was a movie in movie theaters. It was filmed on film. And when you see a film, like at a movie theater, even back then, it's very, very crisp and clear because it's done on film. So they would have seen that. And the only thing I can wonder is maybe in the 3D version, it doesn't do that because you have both things, and maybe the other.
Oh, yes. We're only seeing one half
the other
of that
layer
layer
might compensate for it. That's the only thing I can think of, because it's shockingly obvious for a movie that, you know, it cost $18 million in 1983. Like, this is still kind of a big budget movie at that time, and it made a bunch of money too. It made 88. But I was surprised that that got left in.
We get our very useful dolphins back in this scene as well. They are trying to warn Mike and Kathy, because Mike and Kathy, they park the sub because they want to go into this sunken ship.
Yeah, it's like a sunken
thing,
ship
yeah.
thing that's there that you can see. Yeah.
And so they figure he might have got washed in there. And so the dolphins are around trying to warn them. The movie desperately wants us to jump at every fish that it shows. It gives us at least like 3 different like quick close-ups of fish being like, oh, is this a shark?
Yeah.
No, I got you, didn't I?
It's the same grouper from
the same
earlier.
grouper.
But this
He
is
got
movie.
better. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then we do get the sweet shark jump scare that comes in here.
Yes,
Yeah.
one of many shark jump scares where the shark does not open or close its mouth in the scene. It's like a really rigid puppet that just smashes into things. Yeah, I love how many times that happens in this movie.
Yeah.
So we do get an actual shark attack with people in the water. It looks different than the shark they catch later.
It does.
Spoilers, they catch a shark later. This shark, it's supposed to be the same one. It's supposed to be the 10-foot shark.
Yeah, it's the baby.
It's supposed to be the baby. It's supposed to be the 10-foot shark. But it looks huge. Oh, we also start to get the stock footage of sharks. The first Jaws isn't free of stock footage of sharks, but they went out for the first Jaws and deliberately shot new footage. So that's where we get the scene of the shark getting hooked on the cage because they had a mini cage in the water. They went to Australia. They shot new footage of sharks to kind of fit the film. This is just footage that they bought of sharks, and they speed it up like a shitty like TV show where they need to make the car go faster, or like a Disney Channel show where like, you know, everyone needs to leave the room real quick. All the kids have to leave the room quickly, and they just speed up the film. It's constant. Every bit of like footage of sharks that's not the robot they built is sped up, and it's ridiculous looking.
Yeah. It falls to the dolphins to save the day here.
Yes, because they can't make it back to the sub, so they have to hold on to the dolphins. And a mistake they keep making is whenever somebody's on the surface of the water, because Kay loses her grip on the dolphin and ends up on the surface of the water, and the shark dorsal fin almost reaches her. And this happens a number of times in this movie where the shark dorsal fin almost reaches somebody and then they just get out of the way and then the shark attacks. But the dorsal fin's like halfway down the shark. If the dorsal fin is next to you, the shark's face has already gone by. So they keep making this mistake.
Yeah, that's the first of many fin chases that we'll get, because I guess fins are much easier to show than showing
the shark
our shark
leaping out of the water. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'll take this second because there's a fun kind of thing that I discovered about the dolphins. The female dolphin in the movie, her name in the movie is Sandy. It's actually a male dolphin named Capricorn, who was owned by SeaWorld.
I think it's still alive.
Is still alive,
61 years old. Like
currently lives in Discovery Cave in SeaWorld Orlando, and has interactions with guests. He still gives them rides and does tricks. Wild. He's over 50 years old now. Firstly, he doesn't get to retire, I guess. He just works until he's dead.
Yeah.
But secondly, I didn't know dolphins could live that long.
I didn't
That's
either
wild.
until I read that earlier today as well. Yeah.
So they get out of the water.
We get another shark crashing into something.
Yep.
It's the same chain link fence that the dolphins were hitting up earlier. So another great, just like nose pushed up.
But Mike has one of the most head scratching lines in this movie when they're just out of the water. He says,
What the hell is that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
What is that?
Mike,
Oh yeah.
Mike, you know what a shark is, Mike.
Yeah.
I know you don't know anything else about fish or the sea or water, but you know what a shark is,
Yeah.
Mike.
It reminded me of. Did you ever see the movie Mimic?
No.
The movie. It reminded me of that, where the fucking the oh my god, the MTA guy sees one of the creatures for the first time, and it's just like, what the fuck was that? What the fuck was that? Like, it has that level energy, but it's like, it's a shark.
It's a shark, Mike.
It chased you.
Yeah. And the other thing is, the lagoon has other smaller sharks in it. Because you see them in some of the tunnel scenes when the people are in the undersea kingdom, when they're walking through the tunnels under the water.
They have a few like
smaller,
7 foot sharks,
yeah.
And they
just
talk about keeping them there. There's they shoot bubbles up and it keeps the sharks in one area. So they talk about that. But yes, he should have presumably seen sharks,
One would certainly
considering
hope.
he's Mike Brody.
Yeah. Oh. But yeah, that killed me when I heard that. Yeah, and this is now where we get our discussion scene. Calvin's down, Fitzroyce is down, Kathy and Mike are there, and they're talking about what to do with this shark. And this is where we get Fitzroyce's need for blood, right? And he's very emphatic. This is the first thing he throws out. Is like, we got to kill this thing on TV, right? This is
kill it with like dynamite and grenades, blow it up, film it. You get to show this footage and make a bunch of money. It's a crazy thing to suggest, but I guess it was the 80s, so.
Yeah. Kathy, with the more reasonable suggestion, and also the more lucrative suggestion of, hey, there's no great white shark in captivity. We capture this thing, you make money continuously, which I honestly thought would have been everyone's first suggestion, considering it's already captured to their knowledge.
Yeah,
right?
they have it. They just want to put it in somewhere smaller.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, if she's a marine biologist, she would at least know why it doesn't work, and that it's what happens later in the movie. They basically they lose the will to live and die.
Yeah, it was very
they've
sad.
tried. It's surprisingly sad.
So, I wanted to check on this because everything about this entire scene sounded very suspect to me. So I looked this up. The first great white shark in captivity, they said there's never been one before in the movie. That was made up. It was held in captivity at Marine Land of the Pacific in 1955 for less than a day. And then it was let go. The first great white to be held for a significant amount of time, 16 days, was at SeaWorld in 1981.
So
they could have asked anyone.
2 years before the movie came out. Yeah. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I did not know that. And that's funny that you mentioned Marine Land of the Pacific, because I think that was the first place that had silicone.
Yes.
It
I
was.
believe so.
Yeah.
So that just really tickled me. And then, so we move on from that to a scene where they are loading tranquilizers, because they've decided that what they're going to do is they're going to trank the shark, move it to like a holding pen, I guess, where they would kind of treat sick animals or just keep things where they want to keep them away from the general fish population. And they start off, and this was done, of course, for the 3D, I hope, because there's this giant tranquilizer, and they're getting the air out of it like you do with a syringe, but when you get air out of a syringe, you're just getting the smallest amount out.
Oh,
this guy
like
shoots. He
you
spritzes
spray so much,
like
of
half
the,
a
of the
liter
drugs,
of the trank into the camera.
Yeah,
and I was like, boy,
definitely an effect.
Yeah,
and we have another 3D effect that comes up during this scene as well.
So, and then Fitzroyce is gonna take the grenades to go swimming when they're hunting this shark, and he gets into it with Brody, because Brody's just like, no, I made that lagoon. You're not gonna wreck it with your grenades, which I thought was pretty funny. But then they make the choice to go shark hunting at night.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
And I guess maybe because SeaWorld was closed would be the thing, right? So they don't want to do it in the daytime, because in the daytime you'd have guests. But at the same time, I don't know about this.
It's pitch black underwater. Like, it's already hard enough. Yeah, they really, but it's a movie. It's dramatic. I get it. But yeah, not a great decision.
Yeah.
So they managed to get into a little scuffle with it. Well, it grabs Kay.
Yes.
She gets attacked by it. And Brody is the one who, for some reason, is the best shot. And we get another 3D effect, which is lifted. Well, actually, I can't remember which one came out first, because I think they came out the same year. But Friday the 13th Part 3, he also like shoots an arrow and it flies towards the screen in a very similar fashion, and like much slower than an actual like harpoon would fire, which I thought was quite funny.
It ended up, I think, being my favorite of the 3D effects, though, because I looked at that one, I was like, okay, that one was pretty cool. I like that one.
Yeah, and something to like outside of these kind of the ones we've been complaining about, I think those couple and maybe something else were the original only ones. I think the octopus, the fake tentacle later was one as well. So I feel like there were more organic ones, and they forced them to put in the really crazy ones.
Brody pegs the shark. The shark looks super dead because they just have their model there, and they're just like, oh boy, that's not moving. So that was just my note there, was shark looks super dead. He does have a pretty good line towards the end of this scene, though, because Calvin is in his control center at the heart of the undersea kingdom.
Oh, yeah.
Why they built the control center down there, who can say? But they did, and it's fantastic. I guess the all the machines and the ridiculous like Star Trek-esque computers that they got there were off of a United States. It's like a Air Force command thing. So that was pretty neat. And but Calvin was just like looked pretty dangerous down there. And Brody just fires back, looked pretty dangerous down here too, Calvin. Like, he just, I like that.
Well, also, and Calvin, before that, the first thing Calvin asked was, is the film all right?
Yes.
He only cared about the footage after one of his employees just got attacked by a shark. And then he says that line, because he's just like, yeah, we're okay too.
So now we're nursing the shark back to health with Mike and Kathy. They've got it in a little containment thing. Mike again demonstrates his lack of knowledge about the
well, he doubles down, he goes the other way, and he tries to call the shark a mammal, and she's like, nope, this one's just a plain old fish or something like that.
And so they nurse the shark back to health immediately. Like, it just wakes up and starts freaking out.
They start running water through its gills, and it wakes up. That that facility that they go into where they would be like keeping things separate, I mean, man-made facilities that hold a lot of water creep me out already. I don't know why. There's just something weird about like a weird large tank of water. So that facility in particular was really creepy, I found. Like, if I just walked in there and I was like, that's a fucking shark, I'd be like, done. I'd be like, I'm done. I'm out.
For me, honestly, it was the underwater nighttime shark hunting.
Yeah.
That's one of my hells. Certainly, that's one way you could torture me is throw me in a lake, tell me there's a shark in there, and be like, okay, go get him.
Yeah.
So I think right now we're going to take a little bit of a break because when we come back, we got more water skiing to talk about.
Yes,
because it's been too long since we've talked about water skiing in this movie. Hi, cultists. Nathan here to tell you a little bit about my company, Vox Crow Productions. We're a group of audio producers who would love to help you on your next project. Whether that's a commercial, an audiobook, or maybe even a podcast. Our team has backgrounds in radio, voice acting, editing, podcast production, audio for video, and much more. Check us out at voxcrow.ca for more information. And while you're there, have a peek at our other podcasts. Some of them might even let you hear more of me. Now, let's get back to the movie. And we're back.
Back for more water skiing. I literally wrote in my notes, so much water skiing for what comes up next.
You know what? They paid for those water skiers. They were going to get their money's worth out of these people. And we get some impressive, I guess, water skiing acrobatics. I don't know how to judge water skiing, but they looked good.
Yeah, they are good water skiers. It's just, there's so much of it. I think we had enough at the beginning. I think that was enough, and we could have used it for later. And I don't know if they were hired for the movie or if they were part of SeaWorld, because this was filmed at SeaWorld Orlando, but not everything featured in it is an actual attraction or something they do, and there was no breakdown of that. I just saw a note about it.
I wouldn't be surprised if these scenes are kind of some of the heavier ones that they shot there, because it has things like the grandstands, the stages, that kind of thing that you don't really see much of in the rest of the movie. But yeah, that's interesting. I was really scratching my head about the dancers once we get away from the water skiers.
The dancers,
and there's like Miss Piggy in the middle.
I was flabbergasted by that. Yeah, she was like a pig person. It was a pig mascot who was dancing in amongst all of these. Was it Western themed or something? I don't know. It was either like they looked like flamenco dancers. Like, they seemed to have like big poofy dresses, but then it was also kind of like Western cabaret. And then there's a pig mascot in the center of this. But when she takes the pig mascot head off, she looks like Wendy, like from Wendy's. She has freckles painted on, like she's done up under the pig head as well. Like, just in case it falls off and the kids don't freak out. Like, I don't.
Now I'm just wondering, does she have two jobs? Maybe she plays Miss Piggy and she does like kind of a Pippi Longstockings thing.
Oh yeah,
as
Pippi
well.
Longstocking,
I don't
yeah.
know, but I fixated on that for longer than I should have, to be honest with you. And then I actually looked up. I was like, did SeaWorld have a deal with like the Jim Henson Company or the Muppets or something for an attraction? Because SeaWorld's one of those theme parks that they'll make lands, right? Like, you'll have your I don't know, Universal Studios with Harry Potter or whatever. But so SeaWorld has done something tertiarily related to the Jim Henson Company and the Muppets, which is they have a Sesame Street land. And that is the closest that I was able to come.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't remember that being there. I mean, I guess my trip to SeaWorld was so depressing that I'm sure I blocked that out. Because I remember the thing with Tillicum, the roller coaster, and Canadian kids that I was with, because I was also a Canadian kid, finding out for the first time that Smarties in America are not what Canadian Smarties are, because we went to a candy shop at the end, and American Smarties are rockets.
Yeah, no, you only make that mistake once. I've also made that mistake.
Yeah.
On a trip. US, get your shit together with candy. You know what? Before we get too far into this is a really good place to just tell a little bit for our listeners the story of Tillicum if they don't know it, because this is wild. So Tillicum was a killer whale that lived all over the place in various sea worlds and things. He was involved in 3 human deaths.
And I think they're also the only 3 human deaths.
They are also the only 3 human deaths.
Related to specifically him biting them. There was the guy at Laurel Parquet who got crushed to death, but that was from a faulty trick.
Yeah, that wasn't, that wasn't, I guess,
as far as we know, it wasn't intentional.
It wasn't intentional. So the first one was Kelty Lee Brine. She was Canadian, actually. She was an animal trainer and competitive swimmer. She died on February 20th, 1991. She was working a shift there as she slipped and fell into the whale pool. Tillicum held her foot and dragged her underwater. Yeah, it was really, really awful at the time, and it caused a whole inquiry. Apparently, people could hear her screaming as she fought to try to stay above water. So her death was actually ruled as an accident. Then we had Daniel P. Dukes, 27-year-old man from South Carolina, and he actually broke in to the enclosure.
He wanted to have a magical experience and swim naked.
Yeah. So he climbed into Tillicum's pool and he drowned. His corpse was found severely mutilated by the whale, and
but also draped over Tillicum's back because he was parading it around.
Yeah,
which is fucking crazy.
And then on February 24th, 2010, and I actually remember this from the news.
Yeah,
a trainer, Don Brancho, into the water, and so he pulled her into the water and ultimately killed her, and her death was attributed to blunt force trauma. And
she was maimed. It was quite terrible.
Her
what
scalp
happened to her,
was missing, and her arm was severed below her shoulder, and a lot of this was attributed to the fact that these whales, these things, right? You're basically keeping them, they're so bored they go nuts.
Yeah, Tillicum was psychologically tortured basically all of his life, because when he was at Marine Land of the Pacific, where he initially killed, they would lock him in with the older female orcas in like a weird module thing that with shallow water that was pitch black, and they would spend all night beating him up and like raking their teeth on him.
Yeah, and
there'd be blood all in the water the next day. So he was just driven insane and then lashed out by killing people.
So it's something that I wanted to bring up, because if you've ever asked the question, how much danger are you at SeaWorld? Mostly it's just this whale. Avoid this whale. He's no longer, he's since passed on, but
but he sired a lot of whales.
He sired a lot of whales.
He's the father of Shamu, and Shamu, I think, is still alive. Shamu was born in the 90s. Yeah. Or late 80s. Or it would be the 90s, because he was given to SeaWorld in the 90s.
Yeah. So, just a not so fun facts, but the stuff I found that was really, really interesting, going on a deep dive of how can you die at SeaWorld.
So I believe now it's the next day, and our owner of operations, Louis Gossett Jr., has decided that they should put the great white shark on display immediately so they can start making money off of it. Which seems like a bad idea. Like, you'd think he would at least try to listen to people about that when they were like, yeah, there's been no shark in captivity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he makes this decision unilaterally, does not even tell his lead marine or senior marine biologist, giving more credence to my theory that it is the sandwich artist type of marine biologist. But yeah, so they make he kind of gives the order to do that. We get to see a little bit more of the park too. We get to see the entrances to the undersea kingdom with people walking through. There's a sweet true-headed dragon that's like built into this.
They talk about how part of it is supposed to be Davy Jones's like fun house or something like that, because they got girls out front dressed as mermaids doing that speech. Welcome to whatever it is. But I wrote this down because she starts talking to the guests as they show up as if she's like a robot that's activated by like movement, and everyone just keeps walking past her, so there's no one. She's looking at no one and continuing her spiel about what they're going to see. I was like, she's talking. I don't know who she's talking to. She's just going.
That screams to me malicious compliance. So like, she was told to stand there and tell people what they're going to see, and she's going to do it whether or not people are listening to her. So yeah, it follows the people into the tunnels, and this section is like a fun house, like a haunted house kind of thing. You get like an eel pops out of
moray eel,
and a big octopus tentacle.
And then there's the sound thing plays where it's like, aha, welcome to my fun house, but it's focusing on the tentacle as if the tentacle is the one talking. Like it's centered so lovingly.
Yeah. I really enjoyed that though, because I love the idea of an underwater themed fun house or haunted house. I would totally go in that. Absolutely. I think that's awesome. So Kathy learns, I think she and Mike are like going by or something. Something's happening, but she learns about
before they found out about the shark, they were trying to feed that beluga whale.
That's it.
Because I noticed that Mike has the fish and he tries to get the beluga to come over. And then once it does, he looks away and just tosses the fish. The fish just bounces off the beluga's face into the water, and the beluga goes under, and you just see the fish sadly like sinking away. And I wrote down, Dick can't feed a whale. Is what I wrote down.
So they end up learning about Calvin moving the great white. And do you remember how that happens? I'm trying to remember, because Kathy like runs to go and
I don't remember exactly what it was. Yeah. There's sort of all this stuff kind of happens like pretty quickly, because there's a bit more we see a bit more water skiing.
Yes.
And then as the water skiing's happen, that's when we see Calvin on the beach or at the shore, and he's like tells that the guy who keeps having to address the press, he's like, yeah, move the shark over there. And then somebody tells her, she finds out somehow. So they go. We get another reference to the original Jaws, because they have on the sign, it's the shark tank, and that's when the girl sees the shark going into the lagoon, or they call it the pond in the first movie. She says shark. So
nice. Kathy finds out about the shark. She rushes into the thing. It swims a little bit and then just flips right belly over.
Yeah. Which is not what happens when a shark dies. Which I thought was funny. I mean, they needed to do it something so that the shark, it looks like, but sharks don't go belly up. They're all cartilage. So when sharks die, they sink. That's why we don't have shark skeletons, only their teeth. Yeah.
And so she tries to save it, jumps in the water, but the shark is dead.
Yeah.
This time.
We then go back to the underwater. We go back to the underwater facility, because I wrote down another note about the Star Trek window tech, because we see that again of like people walking by windows.
We also get Kelly and Sean, a little bit of a setup here. Kelly's trying to get Sean on bumper boats.
Yeah,
is the other thing that happens there. Sean is terrified of bumper boats.
He's a real sourpuss.
He is a real sourpuss about it. She did not overcome his childhood fears.
She didn't.
So she might want to work on that. But we go back down to the undersea kingdom in the tunnels. And this was a great one.
I absolutely love this scene.
So they're looking. there's a group of girls looking out into the lagoon, seeing the fish go by, and of course, don't we get the
body of our poor Shelby Overman, the corpse of poor Shelby Overman, slowly rises up into view, and then somebody, as if to bully her, presses her face against the glass, right up against, so she's like a pane of glass away from a rotting man's face. I fucking died. Yeah. That was the best thing ever.
The best thing too was that it cuts to their reaction, and they're screaming, and then when it cuts back, someone has shoved her. She's already there. I was just like, why are you up against this? The best I can think of was someone like freaked out and like, pushed back.
But it looks like she's being bullied.
It does,
and there's no context to it. You're right. Goes from them screaming to her immediately being pressed against it.
I now choose to believe that there is an off-screen, the worst girl in that class who is literally just holding her there laughing.
No, it's a guy who actually likes her. Yeah. If a guy presses your face up against glass in front of a rotting corpse, it means he likes you.
Young love.
Yeah.
So we then, of course, they fish out the body. Then they go to do an autopsy.
Which amounts to just moving the blanket and looking at it.
The best thing was too. There was a couple great things about this scene. The first one is that just for the sheer shock value of the audience. I mean, we've already seen this thing, but they rip off the blanket like it's a magician revealing just right to give us, I guess, maybe a little extra sneaky jump scare there,
because it looks different than the one in the water.
It does some reason. Slightly, yeah. And Kathy comes downstairs, and the guys there. You've got Mike and
the guy who's the other marine biologist trainer guy.
Yeah, other dude. Yeah. And they're just like, no, like you can't. She's like, she's the only pseudoscientist here. Yeah. What are you two assholes doing?
Let the sandwich artist through.
That's right.
So yeah, she's like, if I've seen it before, I can identify it. When she unveils the body, we get more of like a side profile view. All of his organs are exposed, but still being held in place, because it's like the skin is gone and he's just muscle. But all of you can see from the side, like a liver or pancreas, there's like organs all held in place. It looks like somebody started to do a Bodyworks, the Bodyworks exhibit. It was like someone started to do one of those and gave up partway through, because it's like so held together. And then the one note that I made about that making of Jaws 3D, besides the fact that it's mostly about dolphins and moving the dolphins and stuff, they show that bit where she's like about to unveil it, and then they cut over to the special effects guy who's just talking, and he's like, this is an extremely real effect, is what he says. He's like, this is something that actually happens. It's extremely real. I was like, what? I was so glad I like jumped to that point in the fucking documentary. I was like, thank God you think so, because I need to tell the world.
I mean, this is clearly the guy who made it, right? Yes. This is okay, because I don't know that anyone else in the world would have that opinion, but good on him for taking pride in what he did.
Yeah.
And it's not terrible. It's certainly
it's serviceable for a movie, and it's gruesome, but it's not funny. Realistic.
Yeah. Yeah. This is when they realize, so Kathy kind of realizes, for a shark to do this much damage, that little 10-footer couldn't have done this. Yeah. That shark would have to be 35 feet long.
Yeah. Once again, the bite radius of the shark is not the same. They do this a bunch throughout the Jaws movies. And we go to... And they mentioned it, and I think they were there a couple times. It's the underwater bar portion of the underwater kingdom attraction. And it's the most 70s holdover thing in this movie of anything. Like, it's got the colors, everything's sunken. It's very, very 70s.
Yeah. Mike and Kathy run up to Calvin. And I did enjoy this. At least Calvin has some sense here, because they're just like, big shark coming in. He's here. There's a big shark. And Calvin's like, could you not, though? Can you maybe sit down, keep your voices down a little bit?
Well, I also love that he mostly just repeated what they said, because they were like, it's the shark's mother. And he goes, the damn shark's mother. Yeah. I fucking laughed at that so much. Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
And we then... get the unveiling of the shark. This is the first time we see the 35-foot shark, which is 10 feet longer than the shark from the first movie. So this is the first time we see the 35-foot shark. But we only ever see, like, it's sort of like we see the human perspective as if we're on the other side of the glass looking at the shark. And then we see the shark's POV looking at the people through the glass. And I'm like, this is really an opportunity where that dumb Star Trek people glass effect would have worked really well, because they don't do much to give you a sense of scale for the shark. There's a couple times they do, but a lot of the time there's no sense of scale. So I really felt they dropped the ball not having a shot of inside the bar where the shark goes by the window, because they could have superimposed that like they did with the submarine.
Absolutely.
So I don't know why they didn't do that. It was weird.
I feel like they were maybe a little bit embarrassed of the shark model. Just
Oh, I would imagine. Yeah, they don't show it that much.
So
this is where things go
yeah,
fucking bananas. We're well over halfway.
Oh, yeah.
I think we're into literally the last 30 minutes of this movie. That's an hour 45. Yep. And people start going crazy. So everyone runs out of there, and I don't remember why he knows about the water skiers. That's what it is. So he knows the water skiers are out there. Mike does. So he goes to get the water skiers in. He runs outside. There's a poor young worker there with a weird 3-wheeled motorized cart with a bunch of popcorn on the back of it. And Mike throws him on. He doesn't
full
your
GTA.
boss.
Yeah.
I need this. He throws the guy off of the cart, gets on it, speeds away, so all the popcorn falls on the ground. And 9 feral children come in from off screen and start savaging the popcorn on the ground. I thought that was it was like they were waiting for it to happen.
Yeah.
They were like, oh my God, it touched the ground.
I like to believe that those children also devoured that hapless employee. But yeah, this is easily one of the greatest scenes in this movie. Mike cannot drive this golf cart to save his life.
And it's played so dramatically, but if you just change the music, it's like you can put the Benny Hill theme on this and it's just because people are in the way, and he's doing the big gesture, waving, oh, get out of the way. And when he goes over and he he doesn't even go up a hill. There's a slight incline in the grass just off the path, and he hits the incline. The whole thing flips over like he's in a lethal way. Or it's like A-Team whenever the car flips and guys dive out of the car. And I was like, oh my God, I had a bunch of notes about his dumb car crash thing.
It's pretty fantastic. The fact that those golf carts as well, and you can kind of see this as he's going, it's moving at a speed I'm pretty sure Mike could run.
Oh yeah,
he's not
driving faster than he can run. He's just saving energy.
Also, the note I had going through this entire scene was, boy, if only there was some kind of PA system in the park that Mike could use to get everyone clear of the water.
Yeah.
The PA system that he's used half a dozen times by Calvin.
Yeah.
It was and is located, in fact, in the Undersea Kingdom,
which he left
to
go get in the cart,
to careen around, shouting like a madman.
I didn't actually think about that. That's really funny.
So Mike can't drive, but he can't get the attention of the people, and then we get our next Finn chase scene, because this is
the one of the acrobats on the water ski thing sees the shark fin, and they start to freak out.
Shark also keeps perfect speed with the boat.
Yes.
Which I love. He was just that had to be the most. If you're that shark, how frustrated are you? Because we get 3 near misses here, right? Because the water skiers all fall over because they freak out.
Yeah.
But they're able to get
some
them
to shore, some get in a boat. Everyone gets away.
Yeah.
All the time that we're showing the water skiers, you think we're setting it up because we're gonna destroy 5 of them.
Yep.
Nope.
No, they're fine.
They all survive.
They're fine.
Everyone survives.
Yeah. And then was it 2 things with water skiers? Because there's 2 separate incidents before we get to the bumper boats.
Yeah. So the 2 silver bullet guys.
The silver bullet guys.
They have a near miss with the shark.
That's the other.
The group of acrobatic ones have a near miss. They get pulled in. And then also, I don't remember if it happened there or over by the bumper boats, but there's people that are standing on a dock. and they see the shark, and then for no reason the dock breaks
Yes.
beneath them like it's made of like rotten timber. Like all of it, like it was gonna happen whether there was a shark or not, but because they put eyes on a shark, the dock just collapsed beneath them.
Yeah. That was a great little thing where if you're watching it, because this all happens very quickly, you might miss it and not really, it's another set piece. But yeah, the moment you stop and you're just like, wait, what happened to the dock?
It's like in Michael Bay movies where you're not quite sure where the explosion came from. Like the second time around, you're like, I don't know. Water doesn't usually just explode.
So then we get to the bumper boats. And I love the fact that it's Sean and Kelly. I mean, you knew it was going to happen.
There's
but
that guy
so
who
good.
looks like Richard Jewell that's been bullying them because he's, again, Sean's being a sourpuss about being in the bumper boats. And he's just like telling people like, oh, don't hit me. And so she's like, you're having fun. He's like, no, I'm not. And so they decide to go back. The bumper, as he's like saying, no, I'm not. The guy who looks like Richard Jewell comes up and smashes into them. And then again, they like can't get their boat started. And as he's standing up trying to get it started, that guy, like a dick, shows up again and hits him again. So they fall off into the water.
Yeah, Kelly's line there, you're having fun, I loved because it wasn't really a question. She was just like, you're having fun. This is good. We're having a good time. And Sean's there just I hate this.
Yeah. She's just acting how men have treated her.
Yeah, exactly. So my note for this next scene is just Sean is going to need all the therapy because of course
once again.
The shark is just like, oh yeah, these two.
And this is the one time the shark rises out of the water.
Yes.
Because they're sort of swimming towards each other and then it rises up out of the water and separates them. Mm-hmm. And Kelly gets her leg like seriously lacerated, which is a much better effect than the body. It actually looked pretty nasty when they showed it.
It looked like a gnarly gash in the leg.
Yeah.
Although again, like you say, wildly different kind of bite patterns for this one shark, right? Because it's a big gash, but it's not
it's like the paper cut of gashes.
It's the paper cut of gashes. She with that shark, she should probably have lost like the entire leg, but I have now there's a PA system because Calvin gets on the PA system after this point. But the shark now seems to have gone into full fuck all humans mode.
Yeah.
Because it's not even really about eating at this point. It's really just about how can I kill these awful things?
Yeah.
And so we get the shark starts demolishing the underseas tunnel with its face.
Oh, yeah. Because realistically, the thing about the undersea kingdom that doesn't make any sense to me, because they have things like this places, but I don't think any of them are pressurized. They're you just go down an incline until you're underwater. So this one is pressurized, which would mean you'd have to go through pressure changing doors. So you're sealed in under there, which makes no sense. But if it is, I'm pretty sure the glass and the everything would be so thick, even a 35-foot shark wouldn't be able to smash into it because it hits the tube once. Like everyone starts screaming and freaking out. It hits one of the tunnels once and water immediately starts rushing in. It's completely separated.
Maybe this is just an indictment of Mike's skills as a builder.
True, and that's why he's a marine biologist in the next one. And because in the next one, he's a marine biologist, and it's his wife who makes welding art, which was a phase of movies. Yeah. There was like working women and artistic women in like 90s movies, and I guess a little bit in the late 80s. And a lot of the times they seem to be just doing art by welding. And I don't know why. I could probably think of 3 movies that have it.
I wonder if that's a kind of subversion of like, oh, this is a woman, she makes art, but she welds, right? Like gives that little maybe a bit of edge, right?
It's supposed to be like, ooh, edgy, like
she's taking this masculine job.
Oh, a lady mechanic.
Yeah. So my one note here was this was a well thought out facility because you get the blast doors slamming down.
The blast doors slamming down. Did you see the guy's shirt?
No.
You didn't see the guy? There's a guy, after the doors close and the water stops like rushing in, there's a guy standing there with a shirt that says, "Let a gargoyle sit on your face."
What does that even mean?
Well, I had to look it up because I was like, how in the hell would even SeaWorld let someone in with that shirt? And I looked it up, and initially all I could find was other people trying to find out what that meant because it was all Jaws 3 related. Gargoyle is a brand of sunglasses, or at least it was. And their ad campaign was let a gargoyle sit on your face.
Okay.
But it's the gays who are forcing homosexuality on everybody. Heteronormativity's never been forced on anyone to advertise anything ever.
Now we get a big group of people stuck in one of the rooms, kind of an offshoot room, right? It's not the...
It's like a hub.
It's like a hub,
of the things, yeah.
And so they start, the water comes into a point, and then it all, like the blast doors close and everything, and then they're stuck in there. And kudos to this poor employee who was one of the ones that we saw earlier in the movie getting the training on how to be a proper, nice
Well, she
SeaWorld
actually
girl.
does remain calm, because she's like, the water's not rising, we have to stop. Like, we
she
gotta
is
stick together
literally
to
keeping
keep warm.
these 40 people sane. Which I was just like, wow, this is maybe your first day on the job, and you're just like, yeah, I can handle this. This is fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we eventually end up with our characters on the surface, and we're kind of in Mike's shop, I guess, or wherever in SeaWorld they have.
Yeah,
like,
I'm not sure, because I was watching this with
yeah.
my girlfriend, and she was like, she thought he was trapped under there too. There's some continuity stuff, especially in this latter part. There's a few continuity things that I noticed in the background and in that where it's like, where are we?
Yeah, so we're like, there's
now?
welding going on in the background. There's guys frantically building stuff, and so Mike's quite stressed here. Kathy isn't stressed somehow, and she's just like, Mike, I'm actually going to go to Venezuela with you, which is a conversation you could definitely save for another time, but I appreciate that in the spur of the moment you're just like, oh, I love you so much.
As an employee of SeaWorld, and now watching it all going downhill.
I don't know that I want to be in SeaWorld anymore,
Also, we need to go to Venezuela before they found out that you built this piece of shit.
Yeah, fair enough. And so then we've got our media scrum, which goes better than I expected because the journalists refused to ask any tough
They're
questions
so
about how this
stone-faced,
happened.
yeah.
So,
but this is where they're making, the British guy again,
Fitzroy,
he comes up.
He's got a cunning plan.
He has the plan to lure the shark away. Because up to this moment, all he's been doing is getting wet and taking photos.
Yeah.
There was I forgot that he's there during like several montages of just getting wet and taking photos of shit.
And one of the things I don't know that we mentioned earlier, but his plan involves this pump. There's some of the pumps that they use to kind of keep this lagoon going. And apparently the 35-foot shark hid in one of these, and that's why they didn't see it for a while. And that's why they thought the 10-foot shark was the only shark. Yeah. And so he's like, oh, all we have to do is lure it back into this pump, and then we'll close the gate.
Close the gates and then dispose of him at our leisure.
What if she doesn't want to go back in?
I think we can pretty much guarantee that she'll want to go back in, don't you, Jack?
Sure.
Well, just how are you going to guarantee that?
Live bait.
And his plan, though, of course, is to use live bait to bait the shark in there. And, of course, he means himself for reasons I'm not sure of. But I guess he's, he's adventurous.
It's because he wants to take the photos.
He wants to get those
photos. The glory.
It
he's
is
really
the glory,
always obsessed with the glory. Because that's when the other guy says, he's like, you should take a grenade or take like the something to or at least just not have anything in your hands, because he swims really slowly away from the shark that earlier was keeping pace with a speedboat. But he's like, no, we need 2 cameras.
Fitzroy's and Jake, his manservant / cameraman / best friend, I don't really know what their relationship is. They seem to be pretty close at that point in the movies. So they go in the water. They've got got a lifeline that they kind of tie off.
Yeah.
Calvin really helpfully gives us, the audience, exposition while they're doing all this, because they're watching from the command center. And
isn't that when he sees the dolphin and he's like, oh God, is that the shark?
Yes. So then, so this works because the shark always knows when humans are in its water somehow, but it has the terrible strategy, this shark, of always matching the speed of its prey.
Yeah.
So Jake and Fitzroy's are swimming along with it, and they've like got the lifeline. They're kind of pulling on the lifeline to help them go faster, and the shark is just very leisurely following them. Not in a hurry at all.
I think it's about the speed that robot was capable of moving without breaking apart.
Yeah. And so they do get it in the pump. So that's great. Jake stays out of the pump.
Yeah.
So he can close the gate. Fitzroyce goes in. Shark follows Fitzroyce. Lifeline breaks somehow. Or it's the cord snaps or whatever. And then Fitzroyce can't swim all of a sudden as soon as the lifeline breaks.
Yeah, he despite the fact that he's thrashing, he stays in place as the shark slowly gets closer to him.
Yeah.
But we do get one of the best
Greatest.
shots in the whole movie.
Oh, yeah.
Is that Fitzroyce gets eaten by the shark, but sort of all in one bite. And so he's inside the shark's mouth, and then the camera is then inside of the shark looking out as the mouth is like opening and closing, and he's like trying to get out, and he's just getting like tumbled around. And yeah, I remember the first time I watched it was the really standout shot in this movie, and I thought was really great, really creative way to do this, and really stands in contrast to the fact that the director is so subtle at the beginning of the movie, and it's like, no, fuck it, this is the third one, go all out.
It should have been an hour and 40 minutes of this.
Yeah, it really would. It would have elevated the movie.
For me, when I watched this, especially the first time, I was just like, where did this come from? This is so fun. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't look real, obviously.
No, the shark only has one row of teeth.
The shark only has one row of teeth. Fitzroyce is clearly like the shark puppet is moving up and down. Fitzroyce is just like kind of like he's not.
It looks like he's like daring himself to stick his hand out. Like, you're gonna bite me. You're gonna bite me.
The sound design though, I loved for this. The sounds of him getting crunched and munched when the shark finally gets him.
And I think this is also, I didn't have it too much earlier, but this is the first time the shark roars.
Yes.
I believe as well. And consistently now for the next 15 minutes or whatever's left of this movie, the shark openly roars like a tiger.
It's pretty great. Yeah, and this scene goes on for a while too, or at least it feels like it, right? This death scene. But yeah, it's really, really fun.
So yeah, so he gets crunched. The shark then does something a shark can't do, which is swim backwards.
Yeah.
So it's not even hitting its tail against the gate. It's just sort of like swishing back and forth until the point that the gate gives way. Like the metal. You see the metal's bending and banging up of it.
And during this time, Mike has gone down.
He's been trying to weld the tunnel,
doing some underwater welding so it can be pressurized. Yeah. So that's Kelvin and his crew are monitoring the gate where the shark is. And yeah, this is wild because this shark takes up the entire kind of pump house or whatever it is. Somehow, yeah, you see when the gate goes and like it swings open and swings up too, and like remains up. Then the shark is facing the right way when it comes out. So the shark did a full, like, I don't know if it's made out of like Jello, but that shark is
a 35-foot shark.
He's been doing his shark yoga, yeah, for sure. Kathy can't stay out of the damn water, right? She goes down to be like, Mike needs eyes in the back of his head. This is when the shark is captured.
Yeah.
She apparently knows all of these things because she is a marine biologist sandwich artist and can tell that shark is going to be able to, while backwards, open this giant metal gate. And it was a good thing she was there, though, because she does alert Mike to the fact that the shark is back.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
I think we missed it, but I know... Oh, when Fitzroyce is in the water, two things about his outfit. One, he has a really weird headpiece for his scuba outfit, which I don't know if you've seen all the Star Trek movies, but in 3, when they go... I think it's the third one at the end of it, or the beginning of the fourth one, they're on Vulcan. And that's what the Vulcans have. They have like a weird looking red Smurf cap. And that's all I could think of when I looked at it. Also, he has a regulator in his mouth, not a full face mask, but talks completely normally.
Oh yeah, I didn't pick up on that, but you're 100% right.
Jammed right into his into his lips. You can tell it could just be if he tried to talk. But that was something I noticed. So yeah, they realize that the shark is coming for them. Once again, yes, it can only come at them at the speed of plot. So they're able to swim back to the pressure door because they have like a pressure pool in the command center. And we get something that I know has been done in other things, but predates Aliens, predates Jurassic Park. the shark teeth come through the door and stop
Yes.
them from closing the door. So I thought that was, and again, another fun moment where they're kind of letting loose. They're letting their hair down in
Yeah.
the last few minutes to kind of do the fun shark stuff.
I was trying for the life of me to figure out how that worked.
Oh, logistically, it
with the
doesn't make
shark.
sense
It
at all.
can't- It could not have happened, but you know what? By that point, it's just fun. We're
Yeah.
having fun here, so don't think about it too much. Oh yeah, I was gonna say they escape with the help of our great friends, the dolphins. And honestly, I was sure one of those dolphins got munched. And we'll find out later that it doesn't. But it kind of fakes us out into thinking that one of the dolphins gets killed.
Yeah, they go into the control room,
Yes.
and then we get the shark very slowly coming towards the screen, which was clearly a 3D effect. And it's just like, again, no sense of scale, because we don't actually, they're clearly looking at it through like a pane of glass, but we don't see the edges of the pane of glass.
No,
So
we
there's
don't.
no scale. The shark just gets closer and closer till eventually they arbitrarily decide that it has hit the glass and 3D broken glass flies at us. And then the much better effect is them flooding that command center with people in it. That I thought was a very impressive effect. Very scary thing to do.
Yeah, the glass breaking effect is probably the most iconic effect from that movie because it's a bizarro 3D effect that really doesn't land at all, but it's just so silly that you can't help but kind of love it. The shark model doesn't move an inch. It's just brought closer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. I love the scene where the water rushes in. I thought that was very, very cool. But we also get, again, with the scaling of this shark is bizarre because it doesn't seem to be able to get all the way through into the command room, right? When they're going, or when it's after them. It seems to be like kind of stuck in the viewport, but
and it keeps like backing up and coming back in because we see a side view of it, which looks like stop motion or something. And it seems to be the only bit of stop motion for the shark in the movie at all, where it's like kind of wriggling around. And I would have honestly been happy with more of that. I don't know why they didn't use it, but yeah, versus the very slow robot.
God, give me a full stop motion shark. That would have been cool.
Yeah, I would have been fine with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like trying to get in. I forget if it was his brother or his cousin or his nephew or whatever, but Louis Gossett Jr. is like, he said it earlier. There was a guy in the command room that was related to him, and he gets eaten by the shark. And Louis Gossett Jr., who's been the money-grubbing park guy, gets a redemption. He saves a woman.
Yeah.
He grabs a woman and swims away. They're never seen again. We assume they make it out.
And we do hear that they made it as well later on.
Okay, I missed that. But yeah, it was weird that they gave him the redemption, but then like so like kind of flat. Like there was really no build up to that, and the fact that his like the relative of his who was nice gets immediately destroyed
by this shark. Yeah, it's interesting. His character was interesting, Calvin, in that he does play your classic kind of businessman in it for the money type of thing, but he doesn't come off super skeezy. He comes off more opportunistic. I didn't feel like they overdid his kind of, businessman villain thing.
Yeah.
So I feel like he didn't even really need the arc, right? He just he made some bad decisions. He shouldn't have moved the shark to the little pen, but otherwise, like his decisions in the movie aren't terrible. And he doesn't treat his employees the best, but he also doesn't go out of his way to, make their lives miserable. So I thought it was interesting. Yeah, I did think it was funny because you expect him especially, right? Because he is the personification of the park in this movie, right?
Yeah.
Like he is the hubris of man here. And he just swims off with the girl.
Yeah.
He's fine.
Yeah. I forgot. I did write down in my notes because I forgot about the coming for the glass, and I was watching with my girlfriend who had never seen it before. And as soon as that happened, she started burst out laughing, and I just shouted, "It's coming right for us!" So I had to do that. So yeah, so they give the redemption arc, and now Catherine and Mike are kind of not really trapped. They should be able to go the same way, but they take the opportunity to kill the shark because inside the mouth is what's left of the corpse of oh my god, I can never remember
Fitzroyce.
his name. Of Fitzroyce, who still has a grenade in his hand. They magically managed to get like a hooked pole through the pin and pull it, and then despite the fact that they're underwater and the explosion would destroy their organs because they're not far enough away, they get behind one of the desks as if it's like not underwater. They get behind the desk, and when the shark explodes, no way they blew up that robot. That is clearly an explosion laid over top of the shot of the shark coming towards the glass. But we get the last 3D effect of the shark bits flying towards the screen, and the lower and upper half of the jaws like tumbling and then settling into the jaws shape. Apparently, some of the debris that was there was they ripped apart an E.T. toy and used it for some of the debris that blows around.
I can see that, because it's all just like chunks and bits and things, and that makes sense, because all E.T. really was weird bits and chunks and things.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, that was I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the explosion. I enjoyed the shark bits coming at the screen. I thought that was fun. This ending though, this freeze frame. Oh my god!
It's gonna be. I took a screenshot. I haven't said it yet, but it's gonna be the background of my laptop.
It should be.
Do yourself a favor if you're not going to watch this movie. At least try to find the freeze frame final shot, because Mike and Kathy swim to the surface, and they're wondering if the dolphins made it. And then all of a sudden, triumphantly, that very cheesy music that's been playing throughout the movie fires up. The dolphins come jumping out of the water right next to them, and they're like, yeah! I think literally goes, yeah! In like semi-slow motion. And then they show us a shot of just Mike and Kathy in the water, and two superimposed like spinning dolphins, like fucking like Windows 95 screensaver dolphins come up to line the edge, and then it freezes on it. And it looks so terrible. And it's I have the screenshot. I'm making it the background of my laptop. I need it.
The only thing that could have made that scene better is if the water skiers went by in the background.
Oh, yes, of course.
It was fantastic. I honestly want that back in movies, because so many movies ended on great freeze frames.
Yeah,
I feel like in the
frame.
70s, 80s, and you really just don't see that anymore. And that movie, when it ended, and I was just like, oh, that was it, huh? Like that's how we're ending this.
Yeah,
it was.
I could just imagine in the dailies, just a producer looking back at him going, that's what you're doing.
That's what you wanted?
Yeah. Okay. Just reserved.
Yeah.
Oh man. So yeah, that was Jaws 3D. Couple things about production that I didn't mention during this. Roy Scheider said in an interview that they knew better than to even ask me to be in this movie, because he didn't even want to be in 2. He had a deal with Universal Studios because he backed out of The Deer Hunter. And I don't know what role he's supposed to be, but he backed out of The Deer Hunter. He's supposed to be in 2 movies for Universal Studios. And he was like, I'll do Jaws 2 if I just have to do Jaws 2. And when they were making Jaws 3, he took the job to be in Blue Thunder, the helicopter movie, which is actually pretty good. So that they couldn't even get him, even if they tried to ask, so they didn't. And then the other thing about the production of this movie, David Brown and Robert D. Zanuck or Zanuck, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name. They were producers on the first 2 films. And I think it was John Hughes and, Maddie Simmons. I think he was a National Lampoon guy. They came to, and well, I know John Hughes was because he made Vacation. They came to them with the idea of doing a National Lampoon movie that was Jaws 3. It was going to be called Jaws 3 People Zero. And it was going to be a comedy. It was going to be very over the top. Bo Derek was going to be in it and naked like half the time, and just a bunch of absolute nonsense. Steven Spielberg, they were going to go forward with, they were getting Joe Dante to direct it. Steven Spielberg caught wind of this, and he was like, I'll never make another movie for Universal again. He told them, like, I'm out. I'll cancel my deal. I don't give a shit. If you make that movie, I'm not doing it. So I'm glad he at least shut that down. I think it would have been fine. Yeah. You know, I don't think it would have, like, you know, hung around. There's a lot of like kind of weird comedies, like, you know, people never talks about Airplane 2. I think it would have fallen that way. Yeah. Like it kind of would have just, no one cared about it. Or the Large Bus. I forget what that movie was.
Like 80% of National Lampoon movies.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. If you ever want to go on a shocking deep dive, look up how many National Lampoon movies there are. And it's shocking how many are theatrical releases.
Yeah. For me, I think final thoughts on this. To me, as far as kind of cheesy, fun, exploitation-esque films go, for me, this is a real summer blockbuster film, right? It's kind of, I lump this in a strange way in with a lot of movies that we get nowadays, like Marvel movies, where you kind of just turn your brain off and you're just have a good time. don't question it too much. Just enjoy the nonsense that this movie has to offer, because there is a lot of nonsense in this movie. And watching it, like I watched it about 5 years ago when my friends and I first started doing our bad movie nights. And I hadn't seen it since then. And I was not very charitable to it when on first watch, but watching it again now, I really had a good time. I had a good time.
Yeah, I have a good time with all the Jaws sequels, and for different reasons. And you're right what you say, that it is kind of in that exploitation way, but it still feels like a Hollywood blockbuster. So it fails in the way that a Hollywood blockbuster fails.
Yeah.
And so if you're not really into watching these kinds of movies, it certainly would come across as more boring and stuff, because there is so much at the beginning that happens that's really not important. There's setups with no payoff, ultimately, with the water skiers.
Well, and Sean
stuff.
and Kelly just disappear, right? Kelly gets wounded, and then they go off on the ambulance, never to be seen or heard from again.
Yeah. So there's a lot of fault with it, but there's also a lot of fun, because unlike shark movies that don't have a large budget, other kind of the Sharknadoes or the Italian Jaws ripoffs, they don't hold it together as well as this movie does. So even though it could be considered quote unquote bad, it's still much more entertaining than 99% of other shark movies.
Absolutely.
So I think just even on that merit alone, it holds up. And the same really can be said for the other Jaws sequels. There's a certain polish to them that makes them watchable, even when they're not very good. And maybe I'm just talking from a soft spot, because I used to rent a lot of movies, not knowing what I was getting into when I was younger. So I would have, something built up in my mind, and not essentially for the entire movie, but for at least some piece of it, because I was used to movies meandering along, not showing me the monster because they were so low budget. So I was fine with that. I'd rent old Godzilla movies, and then it takes until the last 20 minutes for Godzilla to come out. But as a kid, I didn't care. I was watching a movie. And so I think I do have a soft spot for this movie for doing that it's like, okay, we're building up. And then ultimately it does deliver by being its most silly at the end.
I think that's got it. I think we have successfully done Jaws 3D. The only thing I regret is that we couldn't make this podcast 3D.
Yes, I wish we could. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess if you buy into the 3D audio, whatever that means.
Ooh, yeah. I'll see when I'm editing this if I can make it 3D for him. I'll just keep messing with the pan so it just comes in like at random times. Yeah, everyone will love that.
Definite watch. Definite watch if you are into these kinds of movies. If you're not, maybe just listen to how we described it. It's probably enough for you. But I think if these are the kinds of movies, if you like watching kind of offbeat stuff and movies that we like, I would say definitely check it out. I think it's a great movie to just throw on Sunday afternoon, because you can miss some of the beginning by going to do your laundry.
Not going to be a problem. Really not going to be a problem.
Yeah.
So Josh, what's on deck for next week?
Well, it's a little movie based on a Stephen King property. It's the adaptation of Stephen King's short story Trucks. That's right. It's the 90s TV movie Trucks, not Maximum Overdrive. Straight up Trucks, which I guess could also be considered the remake of Maximum Overdrive. I just figure Maximum Overdrive is done to death. Not that we won't at some point get to it on this podcast. It doesn't matter how many times it's done. It has a lot to be said for it. But I remember, again, going back to my IMDb days, found out about Trucks. It has a wild poster that is like, it's the cab of like a semi with like a screaming skeleton, I think, in the driver's seat. Does not happen in the movie. And then there was like a 280p trailer that barely showed anything. So I didn't know what to expect going into it. I watched it a few years ago during one of my long, I'm going to watch a million horror movies leading up to Halloween. It's a Stephen King TV movie, which are hit or miss, like drastically hit or miss movies. And yeah, just having never seen anything about it, like I didn't know what to get. And being a TV movie, I was like, that a lot of times they're very boring. It's a lot of talking.
So I've just looked this up now, and it is exactly as you describe, except for the tagline, "You turn, you die."
Oh, God.
Oh, Josh, this is...
Oh, yeah.
I have not seen... So, for our audience, I've seen our first two movies beforehand, Chopping Mall and Jaws 3D. This is going to be a brand new experience for me, and just based on this, I have reservations.
Oh, it's going to be a good one. And I think the only other thing that I'll add is for people who do want to watch Jaws 3D, I didn't find it streaming anywhere. You're probably going to have to rent it on Apple or something like that.
There is a place that has it. It's actually the Internet Archive. Has it.
Okay.
Yep.
So Internet Archive has
Yep.
it. So yeah.
So if you search just I think Jaws 3D full movie or something, Internet Archive has the full movie. It is the 2D kind of fuzzy version, but it's enough to get you through. You'll figure out which parts were meant to be super 3D. Don't worry.
All right.
See you next time.
Damn mammal.
This one's a fish. Simple, beautiful fish.
Thanks for listening. If you haven't already, join the cult today by subscribing and giving us a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. Help us grow the cult by sharing it with your friends, family, and that chained up man you keep in your basement. Finally, you can connect with us on Facebook at The Video Cult or on Instagram and TikTok at video_cult666.